Mr. Speaker, and I rise once again to talk about the Glenside Urban Corridor Living Code Amendment, which is a new code amendment being proposed which has the effect of increasing the maximum building heights in Glenside at the Cedar Woods development to 20 stories, up from the existing 8 stories at that site. One of the concerns that I raised last time I spoke in this place about this code amendment was that it was all happening without much consultation with my local community. And in the meantime, what I've gone and done is the job that the Minister hasn't done, which is go and ask locals what they actually think of this idea. And just a few weeks ago, I hosted a public meeting in Glenside, which was attended by hundreds of people, sir, locals, but also I'd like to thank and acknowledge the Mayor of Burnside who came along, the federal member James Stephens who came along, the member for Unley who came along, and a number of elected representatives from Burnside Council, a number of local residents who addressed the meeting as well. And everyone was quite united in a very clear message that they do not want these 20-storey towers in Glenside. Their concerns fell into a number of buckets. First, there was a lot of concern that this whole debate was happening divorced from any discussion about investment in public infrastructure. I think when we see unrestrained, high-rise, high-density urban infill, it puts a real pressure on public infrastructure that's often already at capacity. So we spoke at the meeting about issues such as sewerage, where there's already been issues at that new development, which is adding already 1,000 new dwellings to that site. Issues around car parking, where again we already see increasing pressures as the strategic infill site is being fulfilled. And importantly, all of the car parking arrangements were based off of 8-storey dwellings and based off just 1,000 dwellings being there. Concerns around open space, that in fact the area where we met was just about the only part of open space on the entire site and completely floods in the winter as well, sir. So there's been no talk about increased provision for open space to go along with increased dwellings on the site. Pressure on local schools, sir. Glenside is zoned to Glenunga International High School. Glenunga International High School is full. It's subject to a capacity management plan. There's already residents in Glenside that are being turned away from attending Glenunga International High School, and that's before Cedar Woods and the Minister build their 20-storey towers there. So where, I ask, will the children go to school? And also around transport, sir. This entire new strategic infill site is basically served by one bus stop and one bus. So a lot of very valid concerns about the increased pressure this is going to place on public infrastructure that's already at capacity. There's also concerns that's been raised about the impact it's going to have to the amenity of our local area, because 20-storey towers are going to dwarf the heritage buildings on that site. They're going to dwarf character homes in surrounding suburbs. And importantly, and perhaps interestingly in this case, they're going to dwarf the existing 8-storey buildings on that site. Some of the people most concerned about this proposal are those that have just bought into the Cedar Woods strategic infill site on the basis of a very different plan. Some as recently as the start of this year have bought in. They've downsized there and they're moving into, for example, the Bloom development there, targeted at a retirement-style living. They put their life savings in there as early as the start of this year because they wanted to live on what the plan was that was sold to them. And now, after they've sold basically the 1,000 dwellings there, people have put their life savings into investing in these properties. The plan is fundamentally changing. I think when we talk about planning, we often talk about the need for certainty, and developers often raise the need for certainty in our planning system. And I say, if that's good for developers, which it should be, it needs to also hold for the consumer as well, and for my residents who have bought into the Cedar Woods development at Glenside on the basis of 8-storey buildings on that strategic infill site. So, sir, I told the meeting the bad news, which is this code amendment's been initiated. The good news is we're going to make sure our voice is heard by the minister.